The clock glowed 8:42 a.m. as Kendrick Robinson swung his car into the crowded lot outside the municipal courthouse in Greenville, South Carolina. Can you believe it? The warm morning sunlight spilled across the asphalt, painting long, eerie shadows that seemed to stretch toward him like accusing fingers. Kendrick let out a deep, shuddering exhale. Oh, how he despised being late. As a federal prosecutor, his entire world spun on the axis of discipline and preparedness, a life where every second mattered. But today, fate had thrown a wrench into his perfectly oiled machine. This wasn't supposed to be some grand, chaotic ordeal. No way. He was just here for a simple task, challenging a maddening error in the property tax adjustment on the house. His beloved grandmother had left him. The city had jacked up the taxes out of nowhere. Seriously, what were they thinking? And Kendrick had poured weeks into gathering rock-solid proof that it was a colossal mistake. That house wasn't just brick and mortar to him. Oh no, it was the beating heart of his childhood, the sacred ground where his grandmother's stern but loving gaze had taught him the difference between right and wrong. Dressed sharp as a tack in a dark navy suit, his crisp white shirt practically glowing, Kendrick looked every inch the seasoned attorney he'd fought to become. But smooth? His morning had been anything but. An urgent phone call about a gut-wrenching human trafficking case had derailed him. Couldn't they have waited just one day? And the defense team had slapped down a last-minute motion that he couldn't ignore. No way could he let that slide. He'd scrambled to review the motion, firing off feedback to his team before racing to court, his heart pounding as he knew he was cutting it razor thin. As he bounded up the courthouse steps, his phone buzzed like an angry hornet. A quick peek revealed a text from his assistant at the U.S. Attorney's office. The judge in Greenville has a reputation for being tough on latecomers. Be careful. Kendrick sighed, "Ugh, really?" and shoved the phone into his sleek leather briefcase. Worried? Not him. Facts were his sword and shield, and he'd come armed to the teeth with evidence. Still, that warning gnawed at him, a little splinter of doubt he couldn't quite shake. He brushed it off. Come on, Kendrick. Focus, and stepped into the cool, musty air of the courthouse. This municipal court? It was a far cry from the polished federal courts, where he usually reigned supreme. The walls were a dull, lifeless beige, the seats scratched and worn from decades of restless bodies. The air carried a faint whiff of stale coffee and ancient paper. Oh, could it get any more depressing? Yet, despite its tired look, the place buzzed with frantic energy. People shuffled in and out, clutching dog-eared stacks of documents, their faces tight with worry over parking tickets, petty squabbles, and small claims that felt like the end of the world to them. Kendrick glanced at his watch. 8:50 a.m. 10 measly minutes to spare. Seriously. Was that all he had? Barely enough time to track down the right courtroom. He followed the faded signs down a narrow hallway, the murmur of hushed voices brushing past him like ghosts. There it was, room 204, Judge Charles Whitman, etched in brass on the door, gleaming like a challenge. Kendrick straightened his tie, gotta look sharp, right, and stepped inside. The courtroom was already swelling with people, a restless sea of nerves and anticipation. He snagged a spot near the back, dropped into a creaky seat, and flipped open his folder to double-check his evidence. As he scanned his meticulous notes, a ripple of movement caught his eye. Judge Charles Whitman strode in. Oh, what a presence! A towering figure with a silver mane and piercing blue eyes that could cut glass. This guy didn't even need to speak to own the room. His reputation as a no-nonsense titan wasn't just talk, it was written in the way he swept his gaze across the crowd, missing nothing, daring anyone to step out of line. All rise! The bailiff barked, and the room lurched to its feet. Kendrick stood tall, his posture ramrod straight, as the judge settled into his throne-like chair. The silence that followed? Deafening. Judge Whitman started calling cases with the precision of a machine, his voice crisp, cold, and detached. Bam! Bam, bam, one after another. Kendrick watched, eagle-eyed. A middle-aged guy in a rumpled suit slipped in late, shuffling quietly to a seat, no big deal, apparently. Then a young woman in casual jeans sauntered in, plopping down without a flicker of notice from the judge. What the heck? Not a single glance their way. Kendrick jotted a quick mental note, something's off here, but zeroed in on his own fight. Finally, at 9:15 a.m., his name rang out like a gunshot. He gathered his folder, strode to the podium with a calm he didn't totally feel. Could they hear his heart thumping, and faced the judge? Whitman looked up, and whoa, his expression hardened like stone. Kendrick sensed it instantly, a quiet, electric tension crackling through the room, sharper than it'd been for anyone else. "You're late, Mr. Robinson," the judge snapped, his voice slicing the air like a whip. "Do you think the court's time is less valuable than your own?" Kendrick raised a hand, palms out easy. "Now, Your Honor, I apologize for the delay. I was tied up with urgent federal matters." The judge cut him off, ruthless. "Excuses don't excuse tardiness. This court runs on order and respect. If you can't handle that, maybe you should rethink your priorities." Kendrick felt dozens of eyes boring into him, talk about pressure, but he kept his cool, his face a mask of control. He chose his words like stepping through a minefield. "Your Honor, I get how crucial timeliness is. If I may, I'd like to present my case about the property tax adjustment." Whitman waved a hand. "Shh, whatever. We'll get to that. First, there's contempt to deal with. Tardiness undermines everything here. You're fined $750. The words crashed down like a thunderclap. Kendrick's jaw clenched. $750. Are you kidding me? But he locked his expression tight. Murmurs buzzed around him, a low hum of shock rippling through the crowd. "Your Honor," he started, his voice steady as steel. "May I explain?" The judge's gavel shot up. "Bam, you may not. Consider this a lesson in respecting the court." Kendrick stepped back, his mind spinning like a top. This wasn't just about being late, oh no. This was deeper, darker, something rotten he'd bet half the room had seen before. He flicked his eyes to the other latecomers, untouched, unbothered. The unfairness blazed in his chest, and no way was he letting it slide. Back at his seat, he flipped open his folder. But forget the tax docs, his pen flew across a fresh page, scribbling furious notes. The judge droned on with the next case, unshaken, but Kendrick? He was on fire inside. This was no ordinary morning, oh heck no. This was a battle line being drawn. Kendrick slumped into the back row, his brain a tornado of thoughts. Could this get any wilder? The courtroom chugged along, but that glaring injustice? It stuck to him like glue. He replayed the moment Whitman slammed that $750 fine on him. $750. Seriously? And compared it to the free pass the others got. That young woman up front, casually scrolling her phone like she owned the place, no reprimand. The guy in the gray blazer waltzing in late, and now arguing his case. Not a peep from the judge. Why me? Kendrick wondered, his gut twisting. This wasn't some fluke, it was a pattern. Clear as day, etched into the very fabric of this place. His prosecutor's instincts kicked into overdrive, dissecting every detail with surgical precision. A fine that's steep for being a few minutes late in a municipal court. Outrageous, punitive even. He scanned the room, disbelief, unease, curiosity flickering on faces all around. They felt it too, didn't they? But no one dared breathe a word. Cowards. Next case. Whitman barked, and Kendrick's name boomed again. He stood, steady as a rock, and marched back to the podium. Bring it on. The judge's icy stare dared him to trip up, but Kendrick wasn't fazed. Your Honor, I've got documentation here on the bogus property tax adjustment. This house, it's been in my family for decades, and these hikes don't match the city's own numbers. He slapped the folder down. flipping it open to reveal a stack of pristine papers and faded photos. He jabbed a finger at one page. Look at this. The original assessment held steady for 5 years. Now? A 30% jump with no warning, no reason? Whitman leaned back, oozing boredom. Really, Judge, and muttered, I'll review it later, Mr. Robinson. But your tardiness? We can't ignore that. Do you honestly think your fancy federal duties excuse disrespecting my court? Kendrick didn't flinch. Your Honor, I'd never disrespect this place. I was late because of a human trafficking case. Lives were on the line. Don't we all agree that's urgent? The judge's eyes narrowed but his voice stayed flat. Your noble causes don't bend the rules. Procedures matter. It wasn't the words that hit Kendrick like a punch, it was the dismissal dripping from them. The vibe that screamed, You're not enough! His career, his integrity, his fight to play by the book, none of it counted here. He took a slow, burning breath. Your Honor, I respect rules, trust me. But tell me this, are those rules the same for everyone here? The room quivered. Did he just say that? And Whitman's face flushed red. Are you daring to question this court's integrity, Mr. Robinson? I'm asking for fairness. Kendrick shot back, cool as ice. Not just for me, for everyone. The gavel slammed whack. I won't stand for this. Your fine sticks. Kendrick nodded, unreadable. Thank you, Your Honor. He walked back. Every eye glued to him. Could they feel the storm brewing? Some stared with quiet awe, others with nervous jitters. He'd faced bias before plenty of times, but this was electric, alive, like the whole room was holding its breath for his next move. He slipped out his phone, tapping notes under the table. Oh, this wasn't over, not by a mile. Right then, he swore to himself, this fight was just starting. The courtroom ticked on, but Kendrick had lit a spark. An older man 2 rows up shot him a knowing look. Did he see it too? The clerk's fingers faltered on her keys, her unease plain as day. When the session wrapped, Kendrick hung back, watching people shuffle out, their shoulders heavy with what they'd witnessed. Could they feel the shift? A young law student hunched in the corner, her pen flying across her notebook. Can you imagine the fire in her eyes? Her face glowing with awe and determination as she soaked in every second of the drama unfolding before her. Kendrick Robinson strode out of the courtroom, briefcase swinging in his grip, his mind buzzing like a live wire. This wasn't about some petty property tax mix-up anymore. Oh no! And that $750 fine? Forget it. This was something massive, something seismic, something he couldn't turn his back on, not in a million years. As he stepped into the crisp morning air, the tension clung to him like a second skin. Ugh! Would it ever let go? The courthouse hummed with the dull drone of everyday chaos, but inside Kendrick's head, a plan was taking shape, hardening like steel. He stopped dead on the steps. Wait. What now? Staring at his phone, thumb hovering over his assistant's contact at the point use attorney's office. No, he muttered under his breath. Not yet, not until I'm sure. He slid to the side, heart pounding, and flipped open his notes again. Had he missed anything? Everything he'd seen and felt in Judge Whitman's courtroom slammed into focus. Could it be any clearer? The unfairness wasn't some fluke. It was baked into the system, deep and ugly. Kendrick's razor-sharp legal instinct screamed at him. This was the spark of something huge, way bigger than taxes or his own bruised pride. Back in his car, he yanked open his briefcase. Come on, where's that badge? And pulled out his credentials. The federal prosecutor's emblem gleamed in gold, catching the sunlight pouring through his windshield. Wow, did it ever shine? This was it. His first move, his opening shot in a fight he hadn't planned but couldn't avoid. By the time he stormed back into the courtroom, the morning's chaos had simmered down. Thank goodness for that. The room felt quieter, almost eerie, though a few stragglers lingered, rustling papers or waiting their turn with weary eyes. Judge Whitman sat there, flipping through documents, looking calm, but, oh, you could see it worn out beneath the surface. Kendrick marched straight to the bench, badge in hand, Confidence blazing, bring it on. The court clerk's eyes flicked up, her fingers freezing mid-type. Did she sense the storm coming? Whitman glanced at him, and bam. That irritation flared right back into his face. Really, Judge, again. Mr. Robinson, the session's over, the judge snapped, sharp and curt. Got more business? Book an appointment. Kendrick didn't flinch. Oh no, he was ready. With respect, Your Honor, he said, voice steady but ringing with quiet power. I think it's time I introduce myself properly. He held up his badge, just high enough for everyone to catch it. Take a good look, folks. I'm Kendrick Robinson, Assistant United States Attorney for the Northern District of South Carolina. Over a decade with the Department of Justice, fighting human trafficking, corruption, and civil rights violations day in, day out. The judge froze. Did his hands just tremble? Paper stilled in his grip as the color drained from his face. Kendrick's words hit like a thunderbolt, and the room felt it. Oh, you bet they did. Eyes widened, breaths held, curiosity and tension crackling among the handful of onlookers. I was late this morning because of a federal case lives on the line, Your Honor. Kendrick pressed on, firm but respectful. I get court rules matter, but didn't you notice? The way things went down here today, it wasn't even. The judge's lips tightened into a thin, angry line. He didn't like that. Mr. Robinson, if you've got a problem with procedure, file a complaint, he shot back. Kendrick didn't blink. Holding up his notebook, see this? I've already started, Your Honor. It's not just about me, it's the way others got off easy, especially along racial lines. As an officer of the court, I have to call out bias when I see it, don't I? Whitman leaned back. Uneasy could he feel the ground shifting, and rasped, Are you accusing this court of misconduct, Mr. Robinson? I'm telling you what I saw, Kendrick replied, cool as ice but burning inside. I've spent my career making sure justice doesn't play favorites, doesn't matter who's at the bench. What I saw today, it's a problem, a big one. The silence roared. Could you hear a pin drop? The clerk darted nervous glances between them, her hands twitching over the keys. That law student in the corner? Scribbling like her life depended on it, eyes huge with wonder. Did she know she was witnessing history? Whitman cleared his throat, trying to claw back control, and said, This court doesn't mess around with these things. Think I messed up? Take it up the chain. Kendrick set his badge and ID on the podium. Bam, there it is. I will, Your Honor, but hear me out. This isn't just a complaint. It's a chance to think hard about fairness, about equality in every courtroom. The judge squirmed, gripping his chair, decades unchallenged. And now this. His voice dropped, quieter, shaky. You're done here, Mr. Robinson. Kendrick grabbed his stuff and turned. Wait, one more thing. Thank you, Your Honor. I'll make sure this gets handled properly. As he strode out for the second time that morning, every eye drilled into his back. Could they feel the weight too? This wasn't just about him standing tall. It was about cracking open a system too blind to its own cracks. Outside, he yanked out his phone, fingers flying, and hammered out an email to his office, every detail spilling out, every look, every word, every unfair twist he'd seen. When he hit send woo, he knew it was just the start. That email? It took off like wildfire. By next morning, his phone buzzed. Julia Harper, his no-nonsense boss at the Point Use Attorney's office, on the line. Voice tight with urgency and excitement. Can you believe it? Kendrick, the first read your report. If this is real, it's not some one-time slip, it's systemic bias. I know it is, he fired back, heart racing. Yesterday? It wasn't subtle, it's a pattern I've seen before. I'm not the only one who's felt it, am I? Julia's sharp exhale crackled through the phone. I'm calling the Judicial Review Commission. This needs finesse, but teeth. Get every scrap of proof you can. If this blows up public, we're in the spotlight. The call cut off, but Kendrick was already rolling. Oh, this was war now. He dove into the details from that court session, hours melting away as he dug through public records. Look at this. Fines and penalties under Whitman? Way harsher for black defendants, while white folks got slaps on the wrist or less disgusting. He hit up colleagues, community folks, attorneys who'd faced Whitman's gavel. Anybody got stories? The floodgates burst open. Wow, really? Tales poured in, some hushed and scared, others loud and defiant. A young black woman spilled how she'd been hammered with a huge fine for a parking ticket, while a white guy with a rap sheet got off cheap. Unbelievable. Another said Whitman cut off black defendants mid-sentence, barely letting them speak. How's that fair? Days later, the Judicial Review Commission swooped in. Bam. Investigators flooding the courthouse, demanding records, grilling staff. Things were moving. Miss S. Thompson, the clerk, stepped up nervous as heck and handed over a secret notebook she'd stashed for years. I've been writing it down, she confessed, voice trembling. Every time something felt wrong, I noted it couldn't speak up till now. Her notes? A goldmine, dates, names, injustices, all there in black and white. Holy cow, what a find. Then James Wilson, the grizzled bailiff, spoke up, quiet but firm. 15 years here, he said. I've watched him treat folks different, based on who they are. Knew it was wrong, didn't think I could change it. Meanwhile, the story leaked. Oh boy, did it spread. That law student, she blasted it on social media, boom, and it exploded. Fury and echoes of Me Too lighting up the internet. Headlines screamed out bias in Greenville courtroom. Federal prosecutor fights back, and Kendrick was smack in the storm's eye. Can you feel the heat? Reporters hounded him, but he stayed laser focused. Gotta keep on the case. Judge Whitman? The pressure was crushing him. Rumors flew of secret meetings with oversight bigwigs. He denied it all publicly, but privately? Oh, he knew the walls were closing in, didn't he? A week in, Julia called again. Woo. Her voice was electric. The numbers. Kendrick, they're brutal. Black defendants fined triple what white ones got for the same stuff. It's systemic. What's next? He asked, pulse racing. State Judicial Board, she snapped. And the media's rabid brace yourself. Kendrick nodded. Exhaustion slamming him. Could he keep this up? But quitting? Not an option. His clash with Whitman had blown past Greenville national news, grabbed at headlines blaring systemic bias. Unveiled, prosecutor stands up. Social media erupted. Hashtag equal justice now. Hashtag bias in the courts trending hard. Thousands spilling their own courtroom horrors. Kendrick dug in with the commission, piling up evidence, devastating stuff. 5 years of data showed Whitman fining black defendants 300% more than white ones for the same crimes late. White folks ignored, black folks slammed with fines leniency. Ha! Not for minorities, unreal. The evidence wasn't just cold numbers. Oh no, it was raw, human, and heartbreaking. Former defendants stepped out of the shadows. Can you imagine their courage? Some bold and public, others whispering anonymously, spilling stories that hit Kendrick like a punch to the gut. A black mother, voice trembling, told how she'd been slapped with a $500 fine for daring to fight a tiny zoning glitch. $500. Are you kidding me? Even though she'd waved clear proof the city messed up right in their faces. Then a young man, eyes burning with shame, shared how Judge Whitman had torn into him in open court, questioning his work ethic, humiliating him, only to shrug off a white guy's identical case minutes later like it was nothing. What kind of justice is that? Local activist groups roared into action, thank goodness, organizing rallies, their voices echoing off the Greenville courthouse walls, signs blazing with "Justice should be blind" and "End bias now." Kendrick dodged the spotlight. Too loud, too chaotic. But how could he ignore the tidal wave crashing around him? Inside that courthouse, the heat was rising. Oh, it was intense. and staff who'd served under Whitman for years started cracking, spilling their own hushed truths finally. Miss S. Thompson, the clerk, emerged as a hero, can you believe it? Her shaky hands clutching notes that, paired with court records, painted a decades-long mural of bias. So vivid it could choke you. I never thought anyone would listen, she confessed to investigators, her voice quivering with years of pent-up fear. But now? I can't stay quiet, it's all pouring out. Even James Wilson, the grizzled bailiff, stepped up. Wow, what a moment, his public statement to the commission steady as stone. I've watched this unfairness for years. It's wrong, and it's way past time to fix it. Judge Whitman, though, he was crumbling. Oh, how the mighty fall cut off and alone. At first, he brushed off the accusations' misinterpretations. He called them but the evidence piled up like a mountain, forcing him to scramble. In a rare, stiff statement, he mumbled regret for any unintentional actions that may have caused harm. Seriously, Judge, but those words? Hollow as a drum against the avalanche of proof slamming him down. Kendrick, swamped with attention, could it get any crazier? Stayed rooted, keeping his head in the game as a federal prosecutor, duty first, always. But those messages flooding his office? Impossible to ignore. Emails, calls, letters pouring in from every corner of the country. Some cheered him on. Go Kendrick, while others bared their own scars from biased courtrooms. Heart-wrenching stuff. One letter stopped him cold. From a retired attorney in Alabama, listen to this. For years, I saw the same injustices you're fighting, it read, but I never spoke up. Thank you for having the guts. I didn't. Kendrick's throat tightened. Wow, really? The weight of that praise sinking deep. This wasn't just Greenville's fight anymore. Oh no, it was spreading. Other South Carolina judges squirmed under new scrutiny as activists and reporters dug into records. Dig deeper, folks. And the state's Judicial Oversight Committee roared to life, promising a sweeping review of municipal courts to rip out systemic bias by the roots. About time. By month's end, the Judicial Review Commission dropped its bombshell report. Holy cow, it was brutal. And the truth screamed loud. Whitman's actions were just a thread in a massive, rotten tapestry. They demanded change now, pushing mandatory bias training for judges, regular decision audits, and independent oversight committees. Yes, please. Whitman couldn't take the heat. Can you blame him? And with a public hearing looming, he threw in the towel, resigning with a curt, I believe it's best for the court and community if I step aside. Some cheered, guilty as charged. Others sighed, seeing a small step toward healing. But Kendrick? It was vindication sweet, sure, but no party time. This was just the starting line. There's work to do. As reforms kicked in, finally, Kendrick found himself thrust into a new spotlight. Can you picture it? Speaking at law schools, forums, and conferences, sharing his story and preaching the fight against systemic bias. Powerful stuff. Young lawyers, especially from marginalized corners, lit up. Wow, they saw themselves in him, dreaming of change. At one event, a young black law student cornered him after his talk, her eyes shining, and gushed, "You've shown me the laws about people, not just rules. You've given me a reason to fight." Kendrick grinned, humbled, floored, said, "The fight's just starting, but together, we can fix this system piece by piece." 3 months after that wild morning, can you believe how far it's come? Greenville's courthouse looked reborn. The drab beige walls glowed with fresh paint. A shiny welcome desk greeted folks. How inviting. And signs in every language pointed to new help, payment plans, legal aid, guides, resources they'd never had. A tiny plaque by the door caught his eye. Equal justice is everyone's right. Small. But oh, it hit hard. Inside, the shift was electric. Whitman gone, slipped away after quitting, replaced by a younger judge oozing fairness, thank heavens. And bigger still, reforms were rolling. Every single staffer had to take bias training experts peeling back the sneaky ways. Discrimination creeps an eye-opening. Kendrick stood at the back of that revamped courtroom, eyes roaming. Could he be prouder? Invited to speak to local judges and lawyers about the overhaul. Waiting his turn, his chest swelled with cautious hope. Change was here. But oh, the road ahead was long. This wasn't just Greenville's win. Oh no. It rippled out, inspiring South Carolina towns, then the whole dang country, to rethink their courts. Keep it going. State review boards jumped in, yes, mandating audits focused on race and class gaps, while oversight crews, experts, advocates, even ex-defendants, watched proceedings like hawks, keeping things honest. Love that. In Kendrick's office, the vibe was alive, his old fine framed on the wall, not a brag, but a battle scar. Why'd he fight? Below it, a photo from a recent event, young law students beaming, launching a civil rights clinic in his name. Talk about hope. He felt it deep, heavy, the duty to guide these fresh legal souls. The community buzzed too. James Wilson, that old bailiff, now led bias training for court officers. Can you see him up there? Telling newbies, our job's not just order, it's dignity. See wrong? Speak up. Silence helps no one. Miss S. Thompson, the clerk who'd cracked it open, got a big promotion, well-deserved. Running an ethics program, mentoring young staff to never repeat the past. Tireless, amazing woman. Kendrick's reach stretched further, teaching a seminar at a local law school on ethics and civil rights. Wow, what a gig. His students, fired up by his tale, lingering after class. How can we help? One day, a student waved a notebook stuffed with reform ideas, eager as heck, and asked, "What's the key to a fair system?" Kendrick paused. Good question. Then said, "Listen to court, folks, to the scared ones who won't speak. That's where change starts." Not everyone loved it. Some judges and lawyers griped new rules, cramping their style. But the stats didn't lie. A year in, Greenville's court showed less racial gaps in fines, more payment plans. Folks saying they felt respected progress, real progress. The best moments? People, ordinary, brave people sharing their stories with Kendrick. An elderly black man from that first crazy morning tracked him down, voice thick, eyes wet, saying, 40 years I've been here, seen so much wrong, never thought I'd see no. Thank you for hope. One morning, a letter landed on his desk from a Chicago public defender, young and fierce. Can you feel her passion? Who'd read his story and launched her own bias hunt. Your stand reminded me why I'm a lawyer. It ended. Kendrick read it twice, tears pricking, and tucked it into a folder labeled Impact. Leaning back, woo. What a ride. It wasn't about him, never was, but about all those silenced voices finally ringing out. Months later, he strode back into that courthouse, not for a case, but to speak at a judicial ethics center unveiling named partly for him. Imagine that. At the podium, he faced a sea of judges, lawyers, clerks, community folks, anticipation buzzing, and declared, justice isn't just laws, it's how we treat people here. Fairness, dignity, respect, making sure everyone knows they matter. The applause thundered, deafening, but Kendrick locked on their faces hope, grit, change sparking. The work wasn't done. Oh no, not close, but this was a giant step forward. Heck, yeah. Oh, how Kendrick Robinson's story lights a fire in my soul. It's not just about a courtroom showdown. It's a blazing wake-up call to how we live, how we treat each other, and what justice should mean. I'm furious, yes, furious, at the casual cruelty of a system that slaps a $500 fine on a struggling black mother while letting others slide. How dare we let bias fester like this, cloaked in authority, poisoning lives for decades? It's not just unfair, it's a gut punch to human dignity. Kendrick's fight screams at me. We can't just coast through life, sipping coffee and shrugging at injustice. Oh no, we've got to move. Lifestyle? It's not about comfort anymore. It's about courage, about stepping up when the world's crooked because who else will? And socially, I'm cheering wildly for those activists, for Miss S. Thompson, for every voice that finally roared, enough. We're not islands. We're a messy, beautiful tangle of people. And when one of us hurts, it's on all of us to care. Don't you feel that? Kendrick's story isn't some distant tale. It's a mirror, shoving our flaws in our faces, begging us to ask, are we listening? Are we fighting? I'm torn, half inspired, half ashamed, because how many times have I stayed silent when I should have shouted? This isn't just about courts. It's about us, our hearts, our guts, our will to build a world where fairness isn't a privilege but a damn right. The issue? Systemic bias. It's a beast, lurking everywhere, and I'm sick of it. But Kendrick, that law student, those reforms, their hope, raw and real. We've got to live louder, love harder, and demand better together. Anything less, it's a betrayal of what we could be.